So I say go with something that you're passionate about. Go with your strengths. Go with something that as I joked around earlier about looking around, look at the things in front of you. Look at your actions, your habits. What are those things that you're doing that you don't mind doing, and that you can translate into a business? If you like talking to people all day, maybe being a counselor or something, or opening up your own counselor and counseling career counseling center isn't a bad idea. Know your industry, know who you're up against, right? So know your competition, and if there's people that are, or companies that are doing what you're doing and have a large market share, you're going to be trying to fight, contest a lot of that market share. So try to offer something that separates or divides you, either in a lower cost, or in just more of a, what I've read as a blue ocean way. So something that is different, right? That still offers the same value proposition.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, a serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, and we're always here to help. Now, today we have another great guest on the podcast, Kawan Karadaghi, if hopefully I got it close. And Kawan, as a quick introduction, was born in Romania, raised in France, and in his own words, he was the worst student in high school. I don't know if it was really the worst, but had a poor GPA and was failing some of the main classes, but made it through high school and went to community college, studied business and finance, and then got, I think, into acting and took some acting classes, and had a friend convince him to move to LA to get into do even more of acting, and then I don't know if it's the same or another friend now that I think about it, and also got into more of doing training and working out and getting healthy and fit. And that led to getting a lot of certifications, doing a whole bunch of crazy races and other activities, and then getting into gym franchises. So with that much as introduction, welcome on the podcast, Quan.
Evan, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. That's quite the introduction. I don't know if I can live up to all that.
Oh, I have the uttermost confidence you'll even exceed it. So with that, I give kind of a quick run through of a much longer journey. So maybe take us a bit back in time to growing up in Romania, or being born in Romania, growing up in France, and kind of how you got started in high school, and how your journey started from there.
Yeah, thanks, Devin. It's basically, it started out, my mom and dad at the time were studying in Europe. So they eventually got divorced. I moved to Virginia there to basically start, school, and live with my grandparents at the time, with my mother as well. And we sort of built a life there. And I don't know if you've ever been to Virginia. It's a little bit it's a good place to retire. Let's just put it that way. And you had Washington D.C. close by, so it was always great to get there. But yeah, it was an interesting move there, and just getting to the States, and sort of learning everything from the ground up. I think I was like 7 years old when I started. And I love the United States, and I wouldn't be where I am without the US. So just yeah, growing up, and it was a challenging time to be only speaking my Kurdish and French as my languages. So I was having a tough time communicating, but then I obviously learned English, and excelled there.
So you did, and so you're growing up in France. High school wasn't quite your thing, but you made it through. Went and got a business and finance degree. Now, did you go right into deciding you wanted to do acting and doing acting classes after getting that you're done with the community college? Or was that a shift during college, or was that after college, or kind of how did you go from, hey, I'm going to do business and finance, to I'm going to go be an actor? How did that work out?
Yeah, great question, Devin. So everything, I'm where I am in my life because of people that took an interest in me, and basically, just asked me the right questions, and I just, rose to the occasion of answering them, I guess. So I had gotten into it because business, because I was always a little bit intrigued by business, and I thought it was the cool thing to get into. So you just have an answer when people kind of asked you what you wanted to do with your life. And so I did that. And then after doing that, I said, okay, well, my heart wasn't really in that as much. So I was traveling to Iraq at the time, and one of my mentors had asked me if I had ever thought about, trying out acting. So I had never thought about it, and I was just I was taken aback that someone would take an interest in me, and think that I was capable of doing something like that. So it helped sort of validate, I guess, my wherewithal, or someone that looked at me in that light. So I decided to pursue that. In pursuing that, I found a lot about my identity, who I was, and all these different roles that were available as an actor. So I took acting classes and I was intrigued by it. I thought I found out what I wanted to do. And, I moved to Los Angeles to pursue it full time. And that's when I kind of stumbled upon fitness there, which was, the vehicle. So I always look at acting as sort of the vehicle that led me to another, a dream or realization of another vehicle. Right. So it was
But before now,
interesting.
before you get into the gym and the getting into fitness, we'll definitely dive into that. Did you ever do anything with acting? Did you get on a show? Were you in a play? Did you do anything, or was it worthwhile to move into LA for that aspect, or was it not one of those that it was a starving artist and it never quite worked out?
Yeah, yeah, I was almost famous, Devin. I almost made it. No, I'm kidding. I was going from show to show. I did theater, I did some commercials, very small independent films, and I tried to, get my feet wet, if you will, and I did a bunch of auditioning, and I loved it. I loved the whole process of learning from it. But I did have some small things that I did, but nothing on a big scale there. So, but I
All right.
did, get to meet some awesome stars. So that was cool.
Someday you'll return back to it. I have faith that you're going to be a big star, and then we can say we found him first. So.
Yeah.
All right. So now you get it. You try acting for a little bit, have some smaller parts, do some fun things, and never quite have the breakout moment. But in the meantime, you kind of got into fitness and getting healthy and working out. So was that just how did you kind of transition to that? Was it originally just working out yourself, wanting to get healthy, and then you found that you were good at it and wanted to pursue further? Kind of how did you make that transition in your journey?
Yeah, thanks. I basically, a buddy of mine knocked on. We moved out to LA together. I met him in an acting class. He was a lot fitter than I was at the time, and still kind of is. And he knocked on my door and I said, "Hey, do you want to go for a run?" And I had never, imagined doing that, so I was very, very reluctant. And I remember going on it, and it just, it just nearly killed me. Right? I was floored. I was tired. I was in a lot of pain, and I just remember that feeling, and just sort of looking at my life and thinking, okay, what am I doing? And this wasn't a great thing that I had gone through because it was so difficult to do. So that was kind of the moment that was a turning point. And I then realized that I wanted to try again to see if I could do a little bit better. And that's kind of how I stuck with it. And then he had asked me if I had thought about joining a gym, and I didn't really think of it at the time as anything, substantial. I said, "Oh, no, I haven't." And I went the next day. I rode my bike 5 miles. I joined, and then I started going to the gym, and I started getting addicted to that feeling of progress, of improvement, of making some strides. So I had never really gotten that anywhere in my life. So having the first, feel or taste of that really sparked me there. So it just became sort of like a healthy obsession. That, I just stuck with it, and I worked out all the time. And 4.5 years later of just working out 5, 6 days a week, I knew a lot of things about working out. Right? Go figure. So later on, that's when I met a buddy, and he got me into personal training.
So now you get into personal training, and I think you did Ragnar's, you did, Tough Mudders, and you did other ones, and you kind of, first of all, get the certifications, you get into personal training, you find that you enjoy it, that you're good at it, and everything else. Now, while you're doing this, are you still doing acting, or did you shift over to training, or kind of what was that transition on a business level between what you were originally setting out to do with acting versus where you ended up?
Yeah, so I basically had been working restaurants for a while, and I took a break from the acting scene because I didn't know if that's what I kind of wanted to pursue anymore. I wasn't getting that fulfillment from it. And That's when I was drifting for a little bit again, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I hit like sort of a financial crisis where I was forced to make a decision, either move back to my homeland there, Virginia, or go back to, or, pick up another restaurant gig so I can afford to pay the bills. And that's when it made me look to what I was good at, and or what I knew, my skill set. And I actually had a realization yesterday when I was walking around, and so many times we look all over the place for answers, but sometimes they're just right in front of us, right? And it was in my habits, it was what I was doing, which was working out. And I said, well, this is something that you can do. And when I did that, I picked up the certification. I studied. I really, man, I just got hit with clients, and I didn't have time to do anything else. So I think I went back once to try and make it work to go on audition, but then it took out a big chunk of the day, and I just gotten so much fulfillment from helping others reach their goals that it was kind of doing it for me. And that's kind of what you want in a career, is to get some fulfillment, feel good about what you're doing, learn in the process, and make, some decent money while you're doing it. So it hit all those boxes, and that's when I just ran with it.
Now, one other maybe additional follow-up to that is you got into, you say, okay, find fulfillment, find that I'm probably good at this, so it's kind of where your passion is. Now, did you start out going with the franchise route? Did you start out trying to be a trainer at somebody else's gym? Did you start out your own gym, or kind of how did you break in or find out which model worked for you?
Yeah, so I had basically gotten offered a personal training job at a big box gym, and that's when I stuck with them for about 4.5 years. And then after, I left, there was some time in between. And then I decided to pursue, I met my business partner who said, my friend at the time who became a business partner, and he had asked me if I had thought about opening up a gym. And that's when everything sort of changed. We pursued it. We figured things out. One fell through, and I'm so glad it did, because there was no way that we could have expanded with just sticking with a mom and pop gym model that would just basically pigeonhole us in one spot. So the beauty of the franchise was, we looked and looked everywhere. I mean, we tried everything. We tried selling breathalyzers, t-shirts. We were like, man, we got to do something. And eventually, lo and behold, we looked everywhere except for the place that was just right in front of us, which is what we were kind of good at, your skill set. So we got into franchise, and that allowed us to expand, fairly quickly there. And they just make it so much easier.
Hmm. So now you've done franchising. Now, how long have you been doing the franchises with the gym?
So franchising, we started off in the end of 2017 or 2018 is when we signed the franchise agreements, and it took about a year of negotiation between a lease to get the actual space, to find the space, get the building, start the lease, and open our doors in April 2019 is when we first opened the gym there.
Now, I would be remiss just because, as you may not have heard, we've had lockdowns and COVID for the last over a year. And you always see in the news that, and I think there's some guy out, and I can't remember, it seems like he's on the East Coast, that was fighting it, keeping his gym open. How has your experience been with COVID? Is it one where you've been able to navigate it? Has it been presented opportunities? Has it presented hard times? Or kind of how has your experience been with that? And kind of, and then I'll try not to ask. I try not to ask compound questions, but I'm going to ask one anyway. And then kind of where do you see things going in the future?
Yeah, thanks. That's great. I basically went into, it was just three of us total, Dan, David, myself. I owe a lot of, if not all, the success to them and what they did to sort of pivot in the times of adapting and being flexible, and what helped us to stay alive, or survive, so to speak. So we pivoted, man. We got the outdoor gym built, and we had to shut down the first couple of months, or 3 months was it. Then it was just overnight. We had to, with there was a second shutdown. We had to reopen. We had to open an outdoor gym, and we had to do it in a matter of a few days because the shutdown was going to get mandated again. And it was a very, very challenging time. But I always say to people, going at things alone is hard. When you have a team or you have business partners, you can accomplish 2 to 3 times more if you put your heads together and work together. And that's kind of what we did. We just figured it out. We built the outdoor gym. We adapted. And, it was tough trying to mandate things because it's 24/7 franchise. So once you close the door, you're not really there. So some people, abided by the mask, some didn't. And we were trying to chase people around. So we did that. We kept the outdoor gym. And, to touch up on the second question, I just see that, this was an opportunity for business owners, for everybody alike to understand that when Black Swan events happen, it just goes to show your adaptability, and flexibility in the times, and how quickly you can change into those new shifts there. Because back to our ancestral days, things like that happened. They were, I don't know too much about history, but ice ages, things came, and people had to shift with the time. So the pandemic was sort of our mini, transition there. And that's when, people, it exposed those businesses that were ready and those that weren't. And
Mm.
so I think the future of fitness is kind of gonna, I don't see gyms per se disappearing altogether, but I do see sort of like a home fitness thing, being integrated with that, some personal training being delivered to the door there. And then, who knows, with technology, you're probably, I joke around with my business partner, said pretty soon they're going to give you enough microchips. You're going to walk into a facility and things are going to do the push-ups for you, And I'm like, if that day comes, then we'll adapt again, I'm sure.
Hey, I look forward to that day. If you can, I like to run, and that's usually what I do if I get out. But if you can figure out a way that I don't have to do the running, but I get all the benefits of it, that's the best of both worlds. So if you can invent that microchip, I'll be your first customer. No, I think that definitely makes sense. Now, one unrelated question, then we'll go to the last two questions I always ask. But before that, when you shifted to the outdoor gym, and you'll have to excuse my ignorance, can you do a 24-hour outdoor gym? Did you do a 24-hour outdoor gym, or was it a rescale back version?
So we did, we shut it down during, I believe it was in the AM, like 12 a.m. to 4 a.m., where we had security outside and just, basically guarding it. And then as we started to get more and more busy, we laxed the security, and we still shut it down during those times. And then it was basically open from 4 a.m. to, the 12 a.m. of the following day. So we kept the indoors, and then the outdoors is where the challenge was. So we try to limit the indoors as well, during some points of the night.
All right, makes sense. I was just curious. I'm like, well, do you have, if you're an outdoor gym, you'd either have to have 24-hour security, because otherwise I would think that you would have a problem with people maybe saying, hey, I need to work out at home. Let's go grab some of the 24-hour fitness.
Yeah, exactly.
So it definitely makes sense. So, well, now as we do wrap up towards the end of the podcast, I do always have two questions I hit on. So we'll jump to those now. So the first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
A great question. I got into, e-commerce or online sales, and I looked at it, and I abdicated a lot of it I over delegated a lot of the work and didn't really get involved in the day to day, which I would say was the number one thing. If you want to learn something about a business, you need to know the ins and outs at least for 6 months to a year, to just kind of know how it works. So that way, everything about it. And that way, if there's something that goes wrong, you know how to fix it because you know it, right? So that's the number one thing I learned. Thankfully, I didn't go in the hole too much there. So it was a quick learning lesson for me. And I know I've read stories, people losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. So for me, that one, and basically, not to start off too big. So that was another thing that I made a mistake. I tried to go really, really big, and put a lot of money and spend money on a bunch of things I didn't necessarily need for it to take off. And my message there is, start off small and see if you can find success in something very small. Test it first. Okay,
Mm.
it's working. I can make $1. Okay, great. Now, can we replicate this, and can you keep this sustainable? If you spend, 20, $30,000, and you don't know if you've made $1 yet, you're going to be having a uphill battle trying to get that money, that return on investment back. So start small. And then that was one of the bigger takeaways.
No, and I think those are both great takeaways. I think that testing things out, starting small rather than just dump a whole bunch of money in and hope it works, and also knowing the ins and the outs, I think are both good things that, lessons that are learned, because a lot of times you get excited with an idea or enamored with it, or you think that, hey, I'll be the exception. And so you go too fast or you don't know enough about it. And then you get into problems. Then you learn from those, from those issues. But I think that that definitely is a good lessons to learn and mistakes that are easy to make. Second question I always ask is, if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
So I say go with something that you're passionate about. Go with your strengths. Go with something that as I joked around earlier about looking around. Look at the things in front of you. Look at your actions, your habits. What are those things that you're doing that you don't mind doing, and that you can translate into a business? If you like talking to people all day, maybe being a counselor or something, or opening up your own counselor and counseling career counseling center isn't a bad idea. Know your industry, know who you're up against, right? So know your competition, and if there's people that are, or companies that are doing what you're doing and have a large market share, you're going to be trying to fight, contest a lot of that market share. So try to offer something that separates or divides you, either in a lower cost, or in just more of a, what I've read as a blue ocean way. So something that is different, right? That still offers the same value proposition. Never stop learning about your industry there. So if there's something that's going on, you want to get into something, know everything about it. Just learn it, master it, and just truly take the time to sit down with it daily, read, and that way you'll just know everything. You'll be able to expect things to happen. Go the extra mile. If you do offer a product, go above and beyond. Give that customer, that guest, an experience they'll never forget. And last but not least, make your product of higher value than the dollar that's paid for
All right. Well, that was more than one, and that was great.
it. Cool.
So that was
Sorry, I had
that
a lot
was
to say.
Hey, that's always a lot of great advice. I think a lot of great takeaways. And, the one thing I'll add is, I think on the, there's a lot of times where people will say, pursue your passion, but I like how you kind of said, but I think it needs to be overlaid with something that people are willing to pay you for. In other words, just because you're passionate about something doesn't always mean somebody will pay you for it. But if you can find that great intersection where something that is wanted in the marketplace, people are willing to pay for it, and you're passionate about it, then it gives you the best mixture and likelihood of success. So I think that that, along with all the other pieces of advice, were great advice. So now, is just a quick reminder to everybody, we are doing the bonus question. We're going to talk a little bit about intellectual property. So stay tuned if you want to hear that question and answer. But otherwise, as we wrap up the normal portion of the podcast, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to use your gym, they want to be an investor, they want to be an employee, they want to be your next best friend, any or all the above, what's the best way to reach out, contact you, or find out more?
So at the gym space, it's anytimefitness.com, and then it's you can just Google San Diego and we'll come up there. It's part of a franchise, so there's like a URL, but it's like a long URL. But Anytime Fitness San Diego, and we'll pop up. And then as far as the podcast and the Valueverse, it's just the Valueverse podcast on all streaming platforms, and www.thevalueverse.com. And I'm on Instagram, active on there at Valueverse.
All right. Well, lots of great ways to connect with you, and definitely encourage people to do so. So now, as we wrap up, thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all the listeners out there, if you have your own journey to tell and you'd like to share your journey, feel free to go to inventiveguest.com and apply to be on the show. Two more things as listeners. One, make sure to click subscribe in your podcast players so you know when all of our awesome episodes come out. And two, leave us a review so other people can find out about all of our awesome episodes. And last but not least, if you ever need help with patents, trademarks, or anything else for business, just go to strategymeeting.com and grab some time to chat. Now that we've wrapped up the normal portion of the podcast, it's always a fun time to shift gears just a bit and talk a little bit about something that's always near and dear to my heart, which is intellectual property. So with that, I turn it over to you to ask, what's your number one intellectual property question?
Man, yeah, thank you for taking the time out, Devin. Basically, and I'm sure you've probably heard, some people have, some people haven't, but everything's going towards this digital age now, right? Where we're shifting towards NFTs, or non-fungible tokens, right? So
Mhm.
I'm looking at that, and my question to you is, what is the future of intellectual property as far as Because, now it's like, here, I got this digital baseball card, or I have this digital thing here, and you have a certificate that goes with that. And now that it belongs to this person now. So it's no longer an original if you screenshot it. So my question is, what's next? Are we going to have intellectual property on like conversations? Is our ideas like, hey, I said that first, and here's my certificate number to back what I'm saying? Like, what's the future of intellectual property, and how will people get things, I guess, patented?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Short answer is I have no idea. No, I'm just I mean, there is some truth to that. I don't know where it's going to head the non-fungible assets. I think it was I don't know, for those viewers that may, or listeners that may remember, you had the Charlie Bit Me video that went viral, and I think that one just sold for $700,000+ the rights to it. And they're actually taking it off YouTube. So if it's not off YouTube and you want to see it one last time, you only have a short window. But those type of a things where it's now just all of these non-fungible assets, as you mentioned. You have people that are selling digital images for exorbitant amounts of money. You're also moving into cryptocurrency and other crypto related things. And I think where we'll end up is, you still kind of, one of the tenets of intellectual property is it has to be in a tangible medium. In other words, you have to define it. So, in the patents, as an example, it may be an idea in your head, but you have to be able to write it out. You have to be able to describe it to a level of somebody else who can understand it. With a brand, you actually have to, brand it, put it on your products or put it on your services. You have to have a website, or you have to have a storefront, or you have to sell it on a product. And same thing with copyrights. You have to write the book. You have to do the movie. You have to paint the sculpture, or paint the painting, or do the sculpture. And so I think where it's going to head is it will probably expand into new areas as technology and things continue to develop, with this core tenet being is it still has to be something that is tangible, or at least be able to have a way for people to understand it. Because if it's in your head, or it's a conversation, other things, it's going to be so ill-defined that it's going to be hard to say what you actually own and what you can stop others from doing. So I think that will be kind of the core tenet. Beyond that, your guess is as good as mine, because there's a lot of different things that are continuing to develop, and they're all going to be interesting to see where they come or where they head.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. It's got to be tangible and written out. So that makes a lot of sense. And then I can see that being something that someone can, I guess, trademark, or patent, and say, hey, this is the conversation here, and here it is recorded, here it is written down. But it's just a fascinating time to be living in. And obviously I just see intellectual property getting bigger, because now you have all these things happening with digitization. It's an exciting time, I'm sure, for you as well, just kind of see how this industry is going to grow even more. Because before, man, I mean, it was probably tough to keep an idea or something protected, right? So I imagine that it grew, and this is sort of like an upcoming field, and a lot of growth in it.
Yep, and it'll be exciting to see how it all turns out, and wait and see, and we'll see how life evolves. So, great question. Appreciate you asking it. Now, if you have any other follow-up questions, or if any of the listeners have a question that they'd like answered, feel free to always ping me at strategymeeting.com. Grab some time with us to chat, and we can always explore things further. Otherwise, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks a lot, Devin. Really appreciate you having me on. Awesome podcast you have, and keep up the great work.